So, what exactly is happening in your organization and how exactly is it going to affect your business outcomes? According to Gallup's 2024 data, we have found that disengagement in an organization leads to 18% less productivity. Now, this is because disengaged employees often lack the motivation to take the initiative and perform at their best, and it directly affects team outcomes as well. Not just that, it also leads to 81% more absenteeism within the organization. This especially would lead to a lack of commitment. And if at all there is a lot of cross collaboration happening within your organization, it might even disrupt the workflows and the team dynamics that exist within your organization. So if one team doesn't do their work, the next team that's supposed to carry forward will probably not be able to do that. And thirdly, you see a 41% decline in work quality. This is because when disengaged employees are less attentive to their tasks, maybe their quality might fall short. Maybe they might end up making more errors in their work, and that might even result in lower standards of performance. Now, these are really staggering numbers and huge red flags. Say, for example, your car broke down, okay? You're calling the service center, and somebody just picks up the phone and answers in a very unenthusiastic way, like, oh, yeah, it's going to take 3 hours for me to come and pick it up. How are you going to feel as a customer? Because that is a really bad experience, right? Which brings us to the next point. This is the effect of disengagement. Disengaged employees directly translate to about 10% loss in customer satisfaction. That's because unhappy employees within an organization will most likely provide a subpar service, and this will reflect on how your clients are viewing you as a company and your brand as well. So, this is a really big reason to be worried because this directly also measures to 23% decline in business profitability according to Gallup. Now, not only does this impact revenue, it also impacts the long-term sustainability of your organization. Now, why should you be worried, right? If you actually look at the 2025 stats by Gallup, globally, we've seen about $9.6 trillion in revenue as a global loss just because of disengagement. And that is a huge number. This calculation can also be set up for your own organization. You can see the rate of disengagement within your organization and measure exactly how much money goes into that and what you're probably losing if you're not going to pay attention to how your employees feel. But let's not forget, all this talk about revenue, we also have additional costs that come up here. Disengaged employees are 43% more likely to leave the organization. And we also know that the cost of replacing an employee is almost 2 times the cost of retaining one. So when we add all of these up, we are facing major losses just because of not maintaining employee engagement within our company. So at this point,
Honestly, Sanya, hearing all these costs of disengagement feels a little overwhelming. So, what do you think? What are the reasons why people quietly check out?
good question, Tasneem. So we've done an analysis with our customers from ThriveSparrow over the last 1 year. We've had several conversations with them, and we've identified a few key trends in global teams, right? Across the globe, we've had several customers that have reported the same issues. And to start with, the first and foremost that we found in almost 83% of the companies that we spoke to was the action imperative. Now, you may have heard of the term survey fatigue. This is when employees are constantly being asked questions, they're giving feedback, they're running all these pulse surveys, they're constantly voicing out their concerns, but nothing is happening. The organization is not actually taking any action based on that feedback. This itself, while is reducing the trust of the employee on the company, they also end up feeling like their voices don't matter and the company doesn't take them seriously. So in this case, a lot of times, the fact that action is not being taken itself is becoming a cause of disengagement, apart from all the reasons why they were already disengaged. So this is a huge factor why we find that taking action has to be one of the key imperative things from the leadership side to go forward and create an environment of engagement. At this point, I would really like to invite Dahlia to give her insights on what she has seen from across her experience in different industries around this.
Yes, Sanya, you're right. So first of all, most leaders, I would say all leaders who want to do, who wants to take, all leaders who take voices of, their employees through surveys or focus groups, or interviews, they come with good intentions when they launch the engagement surveys or the engagement program. They want to hear from their people, they genuinely want to make things better. But here's where it breaks down when priorities shift. So, business pressure surge, engagement initiatives quietly move to the back burner. I've seen this pattern across industries and geographies. Nothing disengage employees faster than asking for their opinion and then doing absolutely nothing with it. I've seen it firsthand across industries. Companies run flashy engagement surveys, they created fancy dashboards, and then leadership moves on to the next crisis. Now, in McKinsey's 2024 Global Workforce Report, 67% of employees said their feedback disappeared into a black hole. When that happens, it teaches people that their voice does not matter. Accountability isn't a nice to have when you run engagement programs, employee engagement programs. It's a leadership non negotiable. If you collect feedback, you own it. Publicly, transparently, you act on it. Otherwise, I would say you don't even bother asking your employees because inaction creates a credibility gap. And once employees lose trust, it's almost impossible to win it back. I've heard so many when I go into focus group sessions where employees like, so what are you going to do with this? Oh, they got so discouraged because they're like, oh, Dahlia, I'm telling you, before you come in as a consultant, we've been doing this for 2, 3 years and we see nothing happen. So part of the failure is systemic. Managers are rarely taught why engagement truly matters beyond a scorecard. When you do the engagement survey, managers got their scorecard. They don't know what to do with them. They're not trained to frame engagement as a shared responsibility, not a complaint box exercise. So employees need to understand it's the leadership's role to set the tone and priorities. It's HR's role to build the infrastructure and coach the system. It's the manager's role to create the everyday culture. And it's every employee's role to show up critically, constructively, and solution focused. Where I've seen success, organizations didn't just roll out a survey. They built a strong, deliberate plan, embedded clear communication at every single step, and mobilized engagement champions across departments. And crucially, they closed the loop by sharing action plan results publicly, connecting the dots between feedback, action, happier teams, and better business performance. But here's the next level, and it's critical today. Action plans and strategies can't just be one-time fixes anymore. They have to be sustainable systems. Many managers admit they struggle to find the time, not just to think about engagement strategies, but to develop and drive action plans that stick. But the deeper reality is that managers are not trained psychologists. They aren't taught to understand human behavior, motivation, emotional states, or the deeper drivers of engagement. They are often promoted based on technical skill or not their ability to manage the human experience of work. So you need to build engagement models that create ongoing momentum, a cultural flywheel that keeps turning no matter what crisis hits, what leader changes, or what economic cycle we're in. So without practical models, communication frameworks, and tools to guide them, especially the managers, and expecting them to naturally create high engagement is unrealistic. Building that toolkit for managers isn't a luxury anymore, it's a strategic necessity. So, what works is developing simple, usable models along with powerful communications tools that help managers have their right conversations, interpret emotional signals accurately, and proactively support their team's engagement and well-being. And so today, whether they are startups or global enterprises, companies can and should leverage their robust communication channels to engage managers and employees creatively, consistently, and meaningfully. That's my input, Sanya. Thank you.
Moving to the next point that we found from our analysis, growth stagnation. Now, this is particularly interesting, especially for our current generation. If you were to ask the Gen Z workforce right now the question whether they would go for a really high-paying job with very little growth opportunities, very little learning opportunities, versus a job where they have an amazing learning curve, but probably less pay. 76%, according to LinkedIn's report, state that they would choose the latter. This is because our current generation really values how much they are learning on the job, because they understand that their skill set is what they are getting paid for. And when their skill set enhances with their career, that's how they're going to keep growing, not just professionally, but as personally as well. So without these opportunities being presented for them by the company, they feel like they might become stagnant. And this would really reduce their motivation and their engagement levels. And even within the ThriveSparrow customer database, we found 77% of companies to be talking about this. Dalia, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me, Sanya, I hate feeling stagnant. I hate feeling stagnant in my life, and not just at workplace, right? Because naturally we all want to feel that we grow and we evolve as human. But here's the hard truth. Most organizations today are not structured for real growth anymore. Development today isn't about taking off another mandatory course or sending people to a conference once a year. It's about building a living system where people feel challenged. That's growth, feeling challenged, capable, and constantly advancing. So McKinsey's 2024 survey confirmed what I've seen on the ground. 41% of employees who left their jobs last year said lack of growth was their top reason. Now, I've personally sat across from employees who said, I gave everything, but nobody ever talked to me about what's next. So employees want the care from the organization about their progression, about their development, their growth. When that happens, it's not just career disappointment. It hits at the core of human needs, because at our most basic psychological level, humans need to feel competent, mastering new skills, capable, achieving meaningful milestones, smart, expanding mental models, challenged and victorious, overcoming obstacles and growing confidence through it. So without those experiences, people disengage, not because they're lazy, not because they're becoming incompetent, but because they feel stuck, they feel unseen and unvalued, and hence disengagement.
That was a great insight, Dalia. Next, we found lack of recognition to be one of the major drivers of disengagement. Now, 56% companies spoke about this, but it's not as simple as it looks. The employees that we got feedback from tend to have two facets to which they were addressing recognition. One is the adequacy of recognition itself. They feel like they've been contributing a lot, but the recognition that they're getting in return for it is not really up to the same mark. That's one facet. Another facet that we saw was the fairness of the feedback mechanisms that existed inside the organization itself. And when I talk about feedback mechanisms, what I'm really trying to come around is performance evaluations and how they take place. A lot of employees felt like the feedback and the evaluation of their work was not always consistent or objective, because of which they were not being recognized enough for the work that they actually put in. So when this happens, they tend to get demotivated. When you lose morale in such a way, it's really hard to keep staying in a place where you feel undervalued. Now, I know this is a very common issue that we've seen across multiple industries as well. Please let me know your thoughts, Talia.
Yes, recognition, the culture shaper. Recognition isn't a bonus, it's basic human wiring. You want to feel appreciated, and I want to feel appreciated. From factories to fintech startups, the most common thing I hear from disengaged employees is nobody notices what I do. I am frustrated. I keep feeling underappreciated. And the worst is when I've done something, but my superior, my manager, or the boss takes the credit for my hard work. Now, psychologists like Maslow and Herzberg taught us decades ago esteem needs, right? Feeling valued, seen, respected are central to motivation. Yet, global Gallup data shows recognition remains one of the lowest rated experiences inside companies. Let me be clear, recognition is not hitting a KPI and getting a good job email. Recognition is specific, timely, human acknowledgement of effort, contribution, creativity, teamwork, the things that aren't always measured in the dashboards. Highly engaged teams I've worked with have real recognition cultures. They call out great work in the moment. They are constructive, not fake or fluffy. They celebrate each other publicly and privately. Recognition builds the social fabric of a team. Without it, you get silent resentment and what you call the quiet quitting.
Now, this is a tricky one. We found unequal pay or even matters related to compensation to be quite a driver of disengagement as well. Now, when we talk about compensation and benefits, it's not just about low pay or even satisfaction with the compensation level, right? It's about what you consider to be a fair compensation to you. So, in a lot of the feedback that we've received, frustration really grows when the employee feels like they have been reaching the industry standard when they are talking about their own role. I am doing everything that I can do. But when compared to other organizations, if they are getting paid less, this is a kind of industry parity that they are viewing. And it really kind of makes them feel like maybe the company doesn't value them enough and maybe they can find other opportunities outwards. And this is one of the top reasons why top talent of companies start looking elsewhere as well.
Yes, Sanya. Unequal pay and broken performance management. Nothing destroys engagement faster than the discovery that your work isn't valued fairly. I've seen it repeatedly. Two employees side by side doing the same job, one quietly discovers they're paid 15% less. Or worse, top performers find out mediocre ones are earning more because they get along better with the boss. So McKinsey data shows 58% of global employees feel their compensation is unfair. The real problem? Weak, inconsistent, biased performance management systems. Managers are often undertrained, uncomfortable giving feedback, and biased in evaluations, with performance. HR processes are sometimes opaque or purely communicated. So when performance management lacks rigor, fairness collapses, and so does trust. If you want engagement, you need metrics that are objective, transparent, and applied equally by the managers, the fair judgment of the managers and measurement of the performance. Otherwise, you're just running a popularity contest and your best people will leave. So let's look at the next one we have here, Sanya.
Change without clarity breaks trust. Now, this just doesn't speak about change management only. This also really talks about the crux of the matter, which is communication, right? When the communication links within the organization are disconnected, employees will not get the clear context of what's actually happening. Now, especially during a time of a big transition. Say, for example, in your organization, the CEO has been changed. Now, during this kind of a transition, it's the leadership's responsibility to let all of the employees know exactly what's going to happen next. Because without that, every single person is going to question the future of the company and therefore question the future of their own placement towards the company's success, right? So if this has not been communicated clearly, if they don't have enough context on what's going to happen next, they will feel disconnected. They will lose trust from the leadership teams and they will start planning for other opportunities elsewhere. So this is something that really needs to be maintained across different teams on all levels.
Yeah, communication breakdown during the rapid change. Change is uncomfortable. That's human. Psychology research tells us that change triggers the fight or flight responses in the brain, the same as physical threats. But what amplifies the fear isn't the change itself, it's the lack of communication about it. I've seen leadership teams withhold information, thinking they're protecting employees. They're not. They're fueling rumor mills and paranoia. When communication breaks down, especially during rapid pivots, employees don't know where they stand. So engagement plummets because they feel uncertain, they feel insecure, what's gonna happen? And so that's when they start to feel the disconnect. Their emotional and psychological engagement, there's disconnect. And so you get the result of disengagement from that is people are walking on eggshells, people are doubtful, just trust breaks, right? So McKinsey research shows poor communication during change can drop engagement by over 40%. Employees need to hear it early, they need to hear it consistently, and they need to hear it in a way that is congruent with what they see and experience every day. Silence is not protection, it's betrayal. Clear, frequent, honest communication is the only antidote to fear in times of change. Let's look at the leadership effectiveness next, Sanya.
Good. So again, this is one of those topics which you will find being repeated across every single organization. So when we talk about leadership effectiveness on its whole, the feedback that we receive from employees are across multiple dimensions. So the way that employees perceive leadership itself is something that we can talk about in length. But one of the few factors that really stand out in their perspective is integrity. When the leadership team communicates something, they need to follow up on it. They need to follow through on what they've committed because that is what ultimately builds the trust within the organization. When the integrity of the leadership team is solid, employees are very willing to listen to them. Their words will inspire and motivate the employees to actually go towards the vision that they set, to go towards the company goals that they are placing. And without this trust, all the employees will start questioning the competence of the leadership teams and even question the decisions that are being taken place. Now, this is something that is key to the entire structural unity of the organization. When leadership team maintains that integrity and maintains the competence of their decision making skills and the timeliness with which they adhere to all of their commitments, the organization will keep thriving.
Yes, Sanya. Leadership effectiveness is the core of my work since I started working at Gallup in 2010 in management consulting. Every time we see there's a gap in the leadership effectiveness when we talk about, the correlation to disengagement at work. So leadership today is brutally different from what it was even like 10 years ago. It's no longer enough to manage tasks or control outputs. Like real leaders are coaches. It's expected now in organizations that people managers or eight can coach. You can also act as a coach, not just a boss in managing tasks and delegating tasks. You're required to be coaches, strategies for the business, empathizers, and relentless drivers of accountability, often across Zoom screens, cultures, and time zones, because now we have very diverse and multinational organizations across the world. We're working remotely a lot these days too. So the best teams today, as McKinsey's 2024 study shows, are led by people who are both deeply demanding and deeply caring. I've seen leaders who believe a weekly team call and a few cheerful emails are enough. It's not. Surface level leadership doesn't build trust, loyalty, or results. Real leadership today means building trust across distances, setting high standards without micromanaging, caring about people's mental health and growth, not just their output, communicating, coaching, and caring consistently, authentically, and relentlessly. Now, if you step into leadership, you are stepping into a role model contract. You're not there to perform leadership, you're there to live it. Authentic leaders don't spin empty visions. They connect the vision to real people, real roles, and real contributions. They tell the truth, they explain not just what is happening, but why, the purpose, and they don't hide the challenges. Surface leaders try to build perception. Real leaders build belief. Surface leaders create toxic positivity. Real leaders create hope grounded in reality. Surface leaders speak in slogans. Real leaders align every word with their actions. Employees today are sharper than ever. They can smell the difference. In today's world, leadership is not about being impressive, it's about being congruent, courageous, and clear. Anything less, you lose your people before you even know it.